Yeah, Kevin, you talk about you want the team to show some grit. How would you like that to manifest itself on either end of the floor?
Playing harder than the guy in front of you, number one. Just having a more of a just a consistent competitive spirit. I don't think that we're non-competitive, but I think some of our young guys have to understand that it's in every possession mentality with that grit that I'm talking about. And then part of grit and mental toughness is executing the game plan night possession after possession. Those would be the two main areas.
As you kind of address this losing streak with the guys, what's the balance between wanting to just do things you do better and maybe changing something up?
That's a great question. It's one that I often reflect on. I've used this term with you guys before, but I'm constantly asking myself, are we on the right path? And I think the path for me is defined in a couple different ways. One is, are you playing the right guys? And if so, are you playing the right combinations of guys? That's number one. Number two is schematically, are you on the right path? And so the general answer to most of those questions is yes. There's some combinations that I'm still tinkering with that are holding us back. I got to get that right. The other part is keeping everything in perspective, and I think that's a really important message I want to share with our guys today. You guys have been covering sports a long time. You know how fragile sports are, right? And it's not. And I'm not saying this to try to, make myself feel better, but you're probably, and this is just the reality of it. You're one turnover less away from beating Ole Miss, who's a really good team, top 25 team. You're probably one made three away from beating Texas Tech at home, who went on and probably should have beat Iowa State, third best team in the country. You're one turnover away from getting a good road win at TCU. All of a sudden, you're 3-1 in the Big 12. You just beat a SEC team in November, right? But we're not. We're on the other side of that. And so how do we respond to that? How do we keep all that stuff in perspective, maintain our confidence, and understand that this league is tough. Nothing's given to us, but it is, it is very fragile. And so I think we have to keep all that in perspective while still trying to get, better and addressing the things that need to get addressed. And that's the challenge of a coach. But two, that's what charges me up. I can't wait for practice today. I can't wait to talk to my team. And, I'm excited about getting through this difficult period of time.
Thanks.
Kevin, what were your thoughts on the groupings that you had out there at TCU when you broke down the film, and how did you feel that rotation kind of performed in that game?
Yeah, it was tough. If I had to do it over again, I would have probably just left Trevin out there, even with 2 fouls. It was hard to get a sense of that quote unquote starting group because he only played a minute and 20 seconds into the game he gets his second. I took him out, so. Yeah, hard to say with that initial lineup. The lineup that I did really like was, Dallin, Trevin, Richie, Mawut, and Foose. That was the group that really pushed us to a nice little run there to end the first half. So, what's the commonality with that group? You got a lot of veteran guys out there that know what they're doing, right? So our young guys can learn from that, learn from the attention to detail that those guys played with, and the necessary competitive spirit, consistent possession after possession is ultimately what those guys did. And so that's something that our young guys can learn from. But we're still a work in progress on learning, the groups, which is a hard thing to say, 15, however many games into the year, but that's just where we are.
And one of those veterans you noted, Richie, when you were recruiting him back to BYU out of the portal, were these performances that you've seen in Big 12 play what you envisioned for him this season and kind of your pitch to get him back to BYU?
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, he's as talented as any wing in the country. I really believe that. I've been steadfast about my opinion on him. He's made of the right stuff. He can shoot the ball. He competes. He's got to sometimes compete less and think more on the defensive end, but that's, I think, growth for him. But yes, it is what I expected, and he's answered the call so far. Now I think the challenge for him, it's different when you're a guy who's, not the number one guy on the scouting report. All of a sudden you're the key guy, and now can you still get things done even when they're keying to stop you? And that's a challenge for him, and that's a challenge for me to continue to try to put him in the positions to, get the same types of looks when things are ratcheted up against him.
All right, we'll go with Matt and then Ron.
Coach.
Are you on a treadmill right now?
Yeah, absolutely.
Hey man that's efficient with his time.
Why not? Like these meetings, why not do two things at once, you know?
I like it.
Hey, with Diego, before his injury, statistically, he was better than he has been post-injury. How does he get out of this kind of slump that he's in right now?
Yeah, no, it's something I think about a lot. You know, watching a lot of film, a lot of discussions with him and just people around him. You gotta go through it, man. Sometimes the only way to go through it is just to go through it. I know that's super cliche, but you know, I think his shooting woes are probably weighing on him. I think he's in the last two games, outside of that last shot that he took at TCU, I think he's taken more of the right shots. You know, I think he's in a pretty good rhythm offensively as it relates to just his attacking. You know, he had a couple uncharacteristic turnovers that I know he'd want to have back, but you know, he's got to go through it a little bit. I think some of these grouping changes that we're making will help him. And I expect him to bounce back. The one thing I love about him is, man, none of this has deterred him from working. You know, he's one of the first guys in the gym. He's always in here early working on his game. He's extremely prideful. He wants to play better. And, you know, you got to kind of go through this difficult period of time and just kind of get on the other side of it.
You referenced earlier the close losses, Ole Miss, Texas Tech, TCU. What has stood out to you late game execution-wise in those games that have maybe prevented you from getting wins?
I mean, the commonality between the two out of the three is turnovers. You know, some untimely turnovers on the offensive end. You know, from a defensive standpoint, you know, I got to do a better job of putting the guys, you know, in position to get the ball out of guys' hands. You know, that's been a commonality in those three losses. Some of that's execution-wise, where we just flat out didn't execute the game plan. You know, other parts are, you know, could be a bit more aggressive, you know, particularly with you know, with ball handlers. But, you know, our pick and roll coverage against Reynolds was actually pretty good in that game. We had just got 3 or 4 stops in a row with the same coverage we rolled out for game winner. He made a heck of a play, so you got to give him credit for that.
Yeah, Coach, as Richie Saunders started to emerge as the go-to guy down the stretch, I know a couple of post games ago you talked about Foose, but has Richie started to immerse himself and separate himself as that guy?
I think he's certainly earned that right. You know, I went to him late, you know, where he stepped out of bounds. You know, that was just again, matter of inches. I thought he probably would have liked to have seen him try to hunt a shot in that situation a little bit more. But, yeah, I think he's earned that right. You know, I have a lot of confidence in him there. Now it's just a matter of, you know, making sure we're putting him in the right position to do that. You know, Foose is still a guy that we want to play through. You know, he makes a lot of really good decisions with the ball in his hands. If it's one-on-one or if it's double team, I thought he made some really great passes out of the post. But, yeah, he's a guy that you know, we can play through and still trying to, you know, find – you know, the right spots to put Richie in to be able to do what he does there late game.
All right, we'll go Jay.
Yeah, Kevin, I just want to ask you about Kevin Cada with the Utah game coming up at the end of the week. Are you pleased with his progress and his improvement this year and from over the course of halfway through the season?
I am. Yeah, I think defensively he's been really good. You know, he's been able to protect the rim for us at a pretty high clip. You know, his rebounding started off extremely well. You know, I thought it for a couple game stretch it wasn't where it needed to be. I thought it was better last game. But yes, I think he's improving. I think he's continuing to get better. And wanna see him just play with you know, an edge, a dog type of mentality, because I think when he plays that way, you know, he's a totally different player.
And then how is Canon Chings kind of handling his freshman year as far as, you know, we all see the ups and downs freshmen always go through. How's he handling that and dealing with that?
You know, Cannon's one of the most coachable guys on our team. I love coaching Canon because if I tell him something, he really locks into it. You know, he's going through a little bit of a tough spell right now. I think his defensive intensity has to pick up. I think offensively, efficiency-wise, he's made strides. I think he's taken the shots that are good shots for him. Want to continue to see him hunt threes off the catch. I think his closeout attacks have been better. Really, it's just a matter of him being able to, as I mentioned before, one, have that consistent competitive spirit on the defensive end, and then be able to execute, the defensive coverages, at possession after possession. So that's part of growing pains. I mean, I think we all, as you mentioned, we all see his upside. I think his defensive upside is just as high as his offensive upside, and he'll realize it. We're just trying to, hope that it's fast tracked a little bit more than it is at the moment.
All right, guys. Any other questions for Coach Young? All right. Thanks, Coach.
Thanks, guys.